I feel like when you have been conditioned to be nice and people pleasing for a really long time, it's really hard to recognize some red flags in your friendships, especially the ones you've had for a really long time. And I want to talk about some red flags in friendships that we can have. Some of these are really obvious, and some of these are going to be less obvious. And it took me some time to like really digest them. So I compiled a little list and let's talk about it. All right. The very first thing that I wrote is feeling sick and feeling drained after interacting with the friend, right? And I have personally experienced that. I had a situation when I spent a time with a person that I was really excited to see, and it was a relatively long meeting. And I didn't really enjoy myself, but I was noticing how the energy was just draining from me, and I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And this is your sign to start noticing these things and start taking action, basically. So if you are feeling drained, it is a good idea to stop. And also, I want to say that I'm not blaming anybody here. I'm not saying that any of these friends are bad people or they're bad friends or anything like that. This is not at all what I'm saying. I just want to talk about this because I do think it's an interesting topic. It's a little bit more complicated than it might seem, and you're the only person who's going to make decisions about your friendships and who to keep in your life and who not to keep in your life. But I think it could be an interesting discussion, so let's proceed. So yes, I had this wonderful meeting. It happened quite a long time ago at this point, and by the end of that meeting I felt completely drained. And I did get sick after that for about a week, and I felt really bad. I had no energy at all. And it might seem like not a big deal, but I did learn over time that if you consistently feel drained after speaking with specific people, it is a sign not to be ignored. You should not ignore that. Your body's communicating with you at all times, right? And you have to understand that it's telling you something. Like maybe that it's potentially not the safest person for you to be around, or that it's simply just draining. You're giving more than you are being given. I'll try not to be so apologetic in this video because I feel like I'm already catching myself being like, it doesn't mean it's a bad person. Like obviously it doesn't mean it's a bad person. You're not a bad person either. We're just talking. We're just talking. We're healing from people pleasing. We're learning to listen to our bodies and to listen to ourselves, and learning to choose the right people. Okay, this next one is going to be really short. When your values don't align. To me personally, that's a really big one. I feel like, especially with everything happening in the world right now, but generally also, like when it comes to my friendships, our values must align. They just have to, because at this point, politics pretty much align with your morals and your values, and it's deeper than that. It's beyond. It goes beyond just politics, I feel like. So it is really that deep. It is really that deep. It is really that important. And I will not apologize for that. Next. This next one is obviously quite obvious also, is when your friendships are one-sided. I've experienced that so much in my life. When I was the only person hitting up my friend, right? Or a group of friends or something like that. And I was the only person initiating meetings and initiating hangouts. So that just feels kind of nasty a little bit. I think a lot of the times what that means is that you put them higher. You assign them a higher friendship role than they assign to you. That should make sense. So I think it's okay to start seeing people more as acquaintances rather than jumping to, writing them into your friend's book. So that's what I'm really guilty of doing. Whenever I felt like I had a connection with someone, I immediately thought that we're going to be friends. And this next one is nasty. Um, I want to roughly label it jealousy, but I actually have no idea what that could be. let's just say jealousy. To me, this one is really quite obvious. I had situations with people that I really, really, really liked, and the people that I considered my best friends at the time, who I at some point learned not to share any of my good news with. And that's basically what it comes down to. I label this jealousy, but really is about you not being able to share the good news. You know, the saying goes how you learn who your friend is when something bad happens to you. And that has some truth to it, but at the same time, it is really telling when you cannot share good news with someone, when their energy shifts, when you notice something sketchy about them, you can feel how they are not actually happy for you. If you are, we're talking about close friendships here, right? If something good happens to you, your friends should be happy for you. Whenever I was presented with an opportunity to support a friend of mine, I always used that and spoke highly of them. I feel like that's normal. Apparently not. No, I still think it's very much normal. But if someone is not doing this to you, if you feel like you cannot share good news with people, that's a major red flag. We should stop making excuses for people and thinking that, like, well, we just, don't align with, and everything, and that's okay. Sometimes it's not okay. If something good happens in your life, you got a promotion, you got a dream job, you just generally got a really good job or something, right? Or something major happened to you, like you got engaged or something, right? Or you just entered a really good relationship and you're just really happy. And your friend, they might be saying good things, good, positive, supportive things. But this is where you have to, if you feel the shift in their vibe, if you feel that something is off, something is off. I'm sorry. I recommend you don't ignore that because that person is not, in fact, a friend to you. This next one I feel like might be controversial, but when your friend is not supportive of your art or your business or some kind of endeavor that you started, I want to emphasize once again that we're talking about close friendships because I personally am and have always been a ride or die kind of friend, and I will support you. I will, I historically have been known for being very supportive of my friends. And at this point, I am definitely taking a big step back to evaluate, relationships in my life and my friendships, especially. So that is a big one, in my opinion. I do not believe that, your friends necessarily have to be genuine fans of whatever it is that you do, of your art, of any projects you might have, of anything that might need extra support, fans of your business or anything like that. They might not have the money to spend to support your business because supporting business usually takes money, which is, that's what it is, and that's normal. But I do believe that there are certain things that always indicate your support, like following the social media pages, just liking them, maybe occasionally commenting or something like that. I do believe that these things are important because we do know that algorithms push videos, posts, reels, and such, and stuff like that, that is being liked, commented, and viewed, right? So these things are really important. When you start something and your friends suddenly dip out and disappear, that is a sign. I'm sorry. Okay, here I got to a part of the video where I'm going to talk about men mostly and friendships with men. And this is going to be a little bit more complicated and unpleasant, I want to say, because that's complicated. First of all, I want to briefly touch on a like artist muse relationship, friendship in this context because we're talking about friendships here. I might make a separate video on specifically on relationships, but this one is about friendship, so let's keep it at that. I just want to say that if you're a girl, if you're an artistic creative girl and you found yourself in a position of a muse, you have to be very, very careful and you have to know your place. You have to understand exactly what you are to this man. And you have to when I said know your place, I didn't mean to be insulting to you whatsoever in any way, shape, or form, but you have to understand your place in that man's life. He's benefiting from you, and you might be benefiting from him also. And again, if you found yourself in this position, you got to benefit from that somehow. You have to make that work for you, because he might be earning from you, he might be just getting inspired from you, whatever it is. But do not ever lose sight of reality. Don't ever think that it's going to last forever. Don't ever think that you're always going to be on a pedestal and you're always going to be praised and treated like you're very special. Do not place all of your confidence and all of your self-worth into this man's hands. Please don't do that. I think that happens relatively often in this kind of dynamics. And I mean, they are usually more romantic than not, but still, even if we are talking about friendships, please have agency and do understand that when it comes to generally friendships with men, and I will talk about that a little bit like late in the next one, you have to be mindful of that and understand how this man sees you. That the way he sees you is not going to be the way you see him and the way you think he sees you. So please be mindful of that. Again, I can't stress that enough. And now let's talk about friendships with men. Yeah. I feel a very weird type of way because I have been friends with guys a bit, quite a bit, I want to say. And some experiences were good, some experiences were not so good. And I do want to say that I hate to say this, but I feel like a lot of the times these friendships have a weird dynamic of them, with high probability, thinking that they are in a friend zone. So you believe this whole time that you are a friend to them, that you guys are friends, that they are your friend, and they're not your friend. Yeah. So yes, this might be a hard pill to swallow, and especially if you're younger, I feel like it's really important to note and understand how you personally define friendships for yourself and what you want from your friendships. And that, like, to me personally, friendship, like, a friend is someone who is extremely reliable, someone who's supportive of me, someone who likes me, right? Non-romantically, that's a very important point. And I think it's really, really hard to be, I don't think it's possible, actually, to be honest with you, that to be friends with a man who has feelings for you, secretly or not so secretly, especially secretly, because especially if you don't know, and sometimes it's really hard to know. So, and I feel like I've read so many stories about this from girls and from guys also, and I understand that women find themselves in this position so often when they think they have a friend and it turns out that they don't. Sometimes things end really badly, and I feel really protective of especially young women and generally of women. And I just want to talk about that separately because I feel like it's a really serious point. There's nothing wrong with being friends with men, and I think that men can be great friends. But can you ever be sure that there is nothing else going on in their mind? I don't know. I don't think so. So that is something to be, mindful of. Another thing is misogyny. That's a completely different topic because when it comes to misogyny, it's a little bit different. And actually, misogyny has nothing to do with whether or not this man or this guy likes you or not, because he might as well have a crush on you or not. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. It's not a predictor, unfortunately, or fortunately. I have no idea. My friends cannot be misogynistic people because if you're my friend, I have to respect you, and I do not respect misogynistic people. And it's so, honestly, not even nasty. It's heartbreaking sometimes to notice misogynistic signs in a male friend. And sometimes it happens years later. I was really assessing my friendships and thinking about them a lot, and friendships with some of my guy friends. Um, some things that was said to me, some interactions that I had years ago. I was thinking about that at the end of last year, after the US election, especially because there was a lot of discourse about this and a lot of things came to the surface. A lot of things came to the surface. It might seem obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious, especially if you believe you have a friend and you have, a close connection and you feel safe with them, or you feel like you're supposed to feel safe with them, right? And then some time passes and you realize what was actually said to you or what happened or whatever else. The situation that happened in my personal case, this is just something that, like, I could never really brush off, I could never really stop thinking about, is when I shared a really, heartbreaking statistic about women's safety with a guy friend. And a really, really big red flag in this case is when, that's what happened to me, is when this guy friend, instead of staying on the topic and talking about how horrible that is, brings up some other statistic and starts talking about men's problems. Read the room for once. I hate to say that it is that deep. I don't know. I feel like from these little things, you kind of understand what kind of person is in front of you. If you really think about it, because what kind of person would say something like that? Because I presented facts. I did not present my opinion or some kind of emotional statement. I just presented statistics and how I talked about how hurt I felt. And as a result of that, there was, the response that I got was like, what about man? That kind of stuff. Yeah. Like, if you know, you know. But, and of course, And I absolutely hate when that happens, because it immediately, or not immediately sometimes, like in my case, shatters the illusion that it is a friend in front of you. Um, so yes, and again, this is kind of like, I want to tie this to one of the previous points that I mentioned about values. This is about values as well. This is about values. It is, whether you like it or not, about politics in some way, shape, or form again. But this is important, and these things, I have to align on these things with my friends. I just have to, because otherwise, I don't know, maybe we can be acquaintances, maybe we can be, maybe, right? But we can't be friends, because I don't know. I don't know how even to feel about this. I know that I feel horrible about this. That's all I know. And a different case that I had, which is, again, I think this is a very clear sign of misogyny, uh, of in some shape, which is also quite blatant, and that also really quite hurt me when that happened. And that did not make me break that friendship immediately on spot, which again goes to show how much time sometimes needs to pass for you to really understand what happened and really understand what these little comments mean, and, like, all of that stuff. I was talking about a movie with a friend of mine. It was a very traumatic movie that I happened to see when I was much younger. And I kind of just scrolled through this movie because there was a lot of discourse about this. I don't really want to mention the movie. I just don't. But it is really famous. Okay. And it had a really, really graphic scene in it. And uh basically where a woman was hurt. And this friend of mine, this ex friend of mine, was talking about how he really wanted to watch this movie when I brought this up, and said how, like, how horrible that is, because it is horrible. I art is art and all of that. I completely understand that, but at the same time, like, constantly, like, getting off on women's suffering and seeing art in women's suffering over and over and over again, it just gets old at some point, and it gets old and it shows your true colors. Stop glorifying and glamorizing women's suffering, hurt, pain, and abuse. That is not art. Thank you. Stop. he did not make any big deal out of that. To him, it was just, this is just art. It was really not that deep again. And like I said before, it is really that deep. These kind of things didn't really happen to me with my friendships with women, so there's nothing to say about that. But these cases happen with men, and of course, women also can have internalized misogyny, and that's a really important, thing to talk about also, because that happens, and that is really, really painful when it does happen, because we cannot be friends if you are misogynist, regardless of your sex and gender. Like it does not matter. Anyways, I feel like a lot of the times we like tend to brush these things off because, like, well, we have a good friendship otherwise, and we can have other really great conversations besides that. But at this point in my life, I'm realizing that this is really just this is just really not it. I really hope you like this video. I really hope it resonated with you. I'm losing my voice somehow for some reason. But anyways, please like this video and please subscribe to my channel. It helps a lot. I'm really trying to take off here, and I have been struggling a little bit. So please support me. I would really appreciate that. And if you have any other points, any other thoughts, or any other red flags in mind that could be more covert, I guess, right? Like less obvious ones, please leave them in the comments also. And let's talk about it. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you.